Here's the R Nine T Scrambler that I shall be taking out today, so it's test ride day. And I thought about taking out the R Nine T Racer, but to be honest it looked a bit too sporty for me, and I just thought maybe this is a bit more of a sort of standard motorcycle, so I'll give this one a go. It's interesting, it's got the sort of thick knobbly tyres on, hasn't it? The twin exhaust there. It's an air-cooled engine. The brakes are slightly smaller than the RT, but then again I think it's about 50-60 kilos lighter than the RT and develops about 15 bhp less. So I'm obviously not going to go into sort of a deep technical analysis of the bike. Number one, because I don't know what I'm talking about, and number two, because other people have done that better than me. So as always with my test rides, it's just impressions really, and how I feel as like a bloke who's come back to biking after 37 years. How I feel about that particular bike. Do I feel comfortable on it? How is it all laid out? How easy is it to ride? What's the fun factor and so forth. So okay, without further ado, let's get on and give it a blast. A gentle blast, obviously, if it's very wet. Okay, here goes my bike for its service. Off she goes into Wollaston for a 6,000 mile service. Okay, so you turn the key, the needle swings round, it's got a full tank. Looks like we do have a gear indicator there for neutral, so that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it just to be so simple. So as Dale's taught me, clutch in, feet on the ground. Oh, that's interesting now, because at the moment you turn the throttle, the bike kicks to the right, watch. Which actually, I've got to say, my RT doesn't do. Interesting. So let's check these mirrors out. And the immediate impression actually is sitting on a very very narrow seat. Okay, so let's just get the feel of this. Just get the feeling of the clutch, just how it's different. Feels a little stiffer than the RT's clutch. A gentle biting point isn't too Okay, and we're away. It's funny, after getting off the RT it feels like half the bike's missing actually. A bit like the sensation is rather like looking over a cliff edge. And of course no digital speedo either. So back to an old-fashioned dial. Lights are going to change, so I'm not going to bother with neutral. A little lifesaver there. So now we have to combine a bit of advanced riding with a new bike, which is always fun. And Hepcat Harley picked me up before on this little section for not doing a right shoulder lifesaver there for that lane coming in, so there we are, Hepcat, there's one for you. I do listen to you, mate. I listen to all your feedback on the channel. Thank you very much for all of you taking the time and care and effort to put your thoughts down. Don't promise to take everything on board, but I always listen. Right, so initial impression then, the sort of two or 3 minute impression is the as usual with the BMW, straight out the showroom. I always feel like the grips always feel like cocktail sticks to me. I don't know whether it's because I got big hands or not, but they sort of feel quite uncomfortable in that sense. So I always think that can be solved relatively easily by sticking some grip puppies on. So looking at this dial, I can't do a detailed examination, but it seems to tell you when you're in neutral, but not it doesn't give you any of the other gears. The great thing about that, of course, is that nobody can get on my case about being in the wrong gear. Hee hee. Okay, so no following traffic. I'm coming into a 30. So we'll just drop down. Lifesaver, because I'm changing position. Watch this car. And we're going to just take a left past the church here. Clumsy there. Again, that sort of clumsy throttle movement is actually for me just a function of the fact that my grip on the handlebars is not comfortable really. So of course throttle control affects cornering positions and balance of the bike, so not quite sure whether my cornering is going to be up to its usual standards of perfection today. Titter titter. So let's get a feel for the bike, shall we? As I say, you feel when you've been used to having the fairing in front of you with the R Nine T, it feels like you're actually looking over a cliff edge. I'm riding the R Nine T Scrambler version today, okay, which is evidenced by the knobbly tyres and the it's just got the twin exhausts on. And it's quite a cheap bike, I think, relative. I can't remember exactly what the price is, but I think the idea is that you buy one of these and that you then have sufficient cash left to put sort of bells, whistles, go faster stripes on as you please. Slow. So I shall be taking it very cautiously today. And I think we're going to go left here. And then immediately right. And then straight into a 30. So we'll ride over the S for the right-hander. I'm under strict instructions from Dale now on right-handers that I don't move out from the verge until I get the view. So we get the view, so we can move out now for the left-hander. Shield a little bit. Strange again, not using the digital speedo, having to look at the dial. I must be honest now, I ignore the speedo dial on the RT, as I ignore, to be honest, 95% of its functionality. All the sort of bells and whistles, I use very little of it, to be honest. Out for the dog. I should have done a lifesaver there. Take the lane. Just divide the danger between this right hand junction and the white car. Lifesaver, out we come. Again, I got picked up on my Wiltshire ride there. Dale reckoned I was getting too tight into cars that I was actually overtaking, so again I'm just trying to just give them a little more room. So, strange bike, wet day, small grips, big hands, factor all that in. Just taking it quite cautiously, and of course somebody else's bike. One thing that has been pointed out to me there by Joanne on the service desk is that BMW have now actually reduced their excess on these bikes. So when you took them out, you used to have to sign a bit of paper, which I think basically put you in for the first, I think £1,000 or £1,500. And the excess on this bike is actually £250, which I think is a good move actually, because it's I can see that it certainly made me think twice about taking out a loan bike with an excess like that you might possibly drop. But I think £250 is a fair number. Yeah, it's interesting, just the whole sense of this is just this huge open space in front of me now, whereas I'm used to looking over a screen and quite a sizable fairing on the RT, whereas with the R Nine T, literally you just look like you feel like you're skydiving in some ways. The whole sort of space is open up to you. Just trying to get the feel for it now. As I say, I shall not be pushing the envelope today. Just trying to include a little bit of advanced riding as best I can, while trying not to fall off. Rule number one. Obviously no weather protection on this at all. Like I say, I've got the my richer weatherproof jacket. Basically these are sort of 30 or 40 quid from Sports Bike Shop, and to me for that sort of price you can almost buy one a year and throw it away. I elected not to put the waterproof richer leggings on the basis that with the plastic they might just make the grip on the bike a little bit more slippery, so I've got my new leather over trousers on, which I'm going to review in the near future. They match my jacket. The Wiser Hydra Pro jacket and pants, and these are apparently waterproof anyway. Feels like the heated grips are on actually as well. So I think you do get heated grips on this. I don't know whether they come standard or whether they're an optional extra. Okay, so no following traffic. No wet trousers, no dreaded trickle down into your undercrackers. So, which is a good thing. Drop the cog. The gearbox actually feels totally different to the RT. The gears just snick in, whereas as you know on the RT you get this this clunk. Let's give up some room for this truck. Right-hander coming up. And from what I can gather, this engine is the rather like the old air-cooled engine off the old GS actually, before the GS became water-cooled. quite sure of these knobbly tyres in the wet at the moment. Not saying there's anything wrong with them, but I'm just I don't have confidence yet in them. Now following traffic, we're coming into a 30. And I think I know we've got a tricky little right hand bend coming up here, followed by a sharpish left, and often there's parked cars around this corner, so very, very slowly we'll just trickle in, and there we go, there's the parked cars, lifesaver. So again, instructions from Dale when you're coming around a blind corner like that, no, just bring the following traffic down your behind to almost to a standstill if you want to, just trickle it, 8-10 miles an hour. And again here, and again what you can't see there is a very sort of sharp fall on that right hand junction there, and it's a sharpish turn as well, so again just trickle it. So I'm assuming I'm in third gear here, no way of telling really. I wonder if riding the RT and the you know, these sort of modern bikes makes you a little bit lazy, you know, because they give you so much information, don't they, about what gear you're in and traction control and ABS and so forth. Let's open her up. Well, pulls well. Feels heavy, feels solid. It goes where you point it. Steering is different from the RT, I think, as I understand it, again on the RT Scrambler. The handlebars are sort of canted forward slightly, into a slightly sort of longer angle, which sort of gives this feeling of heaviness, but of course it's never going to match the, I think, the heaviness of the RT steering when you're going slowly. But it's very difficult to describe the way it feels actually. I think particularly allied with these tyres. Okay, so that's not my best ever right-hander, is it? I can feel the comments queuing up already. Yeah, with these tyres, you sort of feel with the sort of knobbles on them. It's a bit like you ride from knobble to knobble to knobble somehow. It's a sort of a strange feeling, quite difficult to describe. Something I've not encountered for a long time. But actually, a very easy bike to ride, I've got to say. And I'm sure it's one of these that, you know, because obviously there's a learning curve with any bike, isn't there? Unless you're a very experienced rider, which obviously I'm not. So I'm sure given a week or two riding something like this, you would very quickly get the feel of it. Okay, taking it very easy around the corners today. I'm constrained by this lorry as well. This is one of the roads that the IM bring me on. You probably might recognise it. But no observer following me today. So just a short ride today, just to get a feel for it really. So I've got to say, I do feel comfortable on it. The seat is very firm, narrower obviously than the RT. Everything's narrower than the RT, I guess, unless you own a Goldwing. Just hold that guy out. But quite comfortable. Not sure it's an all-day seat, but certainly for a couple of hours between fuel stops, quite adequate. yeah, I picked this road because I just thought it was just get a feel for the bike really. I'll probably be coming home on a faster A road, but still having some bends on it. Obviously at the moment it's let's just hold this guy. Okay, so I'm sitting further back now, learning my lesson from the Wiltshire ride about not getting too tight up to that silver car before I go past him. Lifesaver, and off we go. So I'm getting something right today. Cornering's not great, I didn't think it would be, to be honest, on this bike. No reflection on the bike, by the way, but just my lack of skill in adapting to a new machine. It's interesting as well, actually, with your speed control. Thank you. You with a digital speedo, it sort of shouts at you, doesn't it? You know, 31, 32 miles an hour. But with an analog display like this one, actually, it's a bit less pressure, actually, because of course you can't discern the width of the needle. Got a white van behind NSL. Let's go. Okay, so you crank it up then. Okay, crank it up relatively to 60, and of course then there's the immediate pressure in your chest of the wind blast coming towards you, which actually then relieves the weight on the handlebars a little bit. Whereas round town, I was very conscious there of actually leaning on the handlebars, and as I say, they are quite narrow, quite thin. The grips, I should say. Okay, so a car following that other car, so I'm just moving left just to present the vehicle, just in case she thinks about an overtake. Yeah, it's interesting. So obviously I've been back on the bike now for 10 or 11 months, if you include all the the sort of initial training I did when I actually came back to it, and not thought twice really about jumping on a bike. I did think twice about the R Nine T Racer. I think that's the one that Dale really wanted me to ride. He recommended I ride that, but read a few reviews over it and it looked a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not quite sure whether it was me, so I just thought this is more the sort of the person I am. And of course it says it's a scrambler, so it's not a sort of an off-road type scrambler. I think it's the sort of kind of standard bike, I think, that during the 1970s and 80s that you would have bought and then put sort of big handlebars on and played around with the suspension and exhaust and so forth, such that you could maybe get it on sort of a gravel road or something like that. And it's, I think, more a sort of as I understand it, I don't know what you think, but this is more a sort of a fashion over function thing, really. But very pleasant, actually. I couldn't ever see myself buying one of these, I must be honest. But I'm very happy with my RT. Nothing coming, so we can straighten that. A nice view through the hedge there of that curve. And again, what's keeping me out of the edges at the moment, why my cornering is not as precise as maybe it has started to become over the last 5 or 6 rides, is the throttle control, actually. Okay, just starting to get a feel for it. And again, just got Dale's words running through my mind about not giving up position until I've got the view. or obviously unless you have to because you've got something coming the other way. Well, certainly testing the curves out today. Shame it wasn't a bit dry, really. No shortage of power, as you'd expect, with 110 brake horsepower, and I think that's sort of around the 200 kilo mark, I think, this bike, so pulls very, very well. So just time just to give a little shout out to Wollaston's. Thanks to Wollaston's and Joanne and the service desk for letting me ride their bike today. It's always crazy, isn't it, when you ride a bike and somebody else has to clean it in the rain. So we're going to hold the position until I get view. Start to feed a bit of throttle in. Okay, and there we go. And again. I know I've not demonstrated it particularly well today, so please forgive me for that, but as I say, that's thanks to my throttle control and knobbly tyres and wet weather really, but generally I feel as though my cornering, I'm feeling happy around the corners now, whereas I was less happy to position. I always felt I was going to run into the hedge or run out of road, and I'm sure that's a function of lots of things. I can't put my finger on one thing. It's obviously a function, I think, primarily of of Dale's coaching. And give credit where it's due, he's been very patient. I think just a mortal man would have given up on me long ago. Offered me the cyanide tablet, but he's been very patient, and I've obviously put a lot of work in, you know, and obviously all the feedback from the comments as well has really helped. So but we're getting there, and I think, you know, a year ago if you'd said to me this is the standard you'll be riding at, Neil, in a year's time, I'd have said yeah, I'll take that. Coming back to the bike, you've got to be really focused. I think you've got to not just buy the bike, you've got to be equally committed to the level of training that's going to go with that as well, and really take that on board, make it part of who you are and what you do, which is what I've tried to do. I was coming there anyway, so I couldn't hold him. Okay, so it's a left-hander, so we ride over the W. Rain coming steadily down, a little bit heavier now if anything. We're just on the tail end of the series of American hurricanes, I think. So we've had 100 mile an hour winds yesterday, but the wind isn't so bad today, but the rain is certainly here. Okay. Well, I think we shall go north up the A6. Okay. Okay, so just a chance just to, I think we're actually riding into the wind here as well actually, so it is interesting. Once you get the speed above sort of 50, you get that sort of pressure in your chest, which just basically takes the weight off your arms actually. Nice empty road. And I don't know whether you can pick that up on the microphone, but there's you can actually hear the knobbly tyres. They make a sort of what's the word? How would you describe it? Difficult to describe really, but a totally different noise from the Metzler Rotex. And over to our left here somewhere, not many miles away, a couple of miles away, is Santa Pod. Ever looked at the drag races from Santa Pod on YouTube? With a jet powered car, I would strongly recommend for that video. Yeah, the rain is tippling down now. Yeah, this bike's definitely got the muscle. I imagine, you know, uphill and down dale, it'd be a lot of fun actually, once you get used to the slightly quirky characteristics of the steering and the knobbly tyres and so forth. Looking for 7th gear there, couldn't find it. Yeah, it's interesting. Got to say, the wind noise over my Shoei and Eartec here is actually quieter than it would be over when I'm actually sitting behind the RT's fairing. I think I'm obviously sitting in a very clean airstream here, whereas what the RT's fairing does, it does create a low pressure area behind the screen. Yeah, the gearbox just snicks into place, totally different, wholly different from the RT. Be interesting, won't it, when I think it's the new, I don't know whether it's going to be called an RT 1250, but the new model's coming out with the engine's been modified, hasn't it? 50cc more and some clever stuff under the bonnet, as it were. So I imagine that's going to be emerging over the bike shows over the winter. See what difference that makes. Must have a test ride of that, me and everybody else, I reckon. Yeah, very clean airflow, so now for the first time up to 70 miles an hour on this dual carriageway. And it's very quiet. No mirrors obviously on this white VW. Yeah, it's interesting. This is the first time I suppose I've ever been able to put the Shoei and Eartec almost like in a wind tunnel type situation with a very clean flow of air over it, and it's very stable, and you get a sort of almost like a sense that almost like you're slightly in a vacuum. Actually, I can almost sort of feel a pressure drop in my ears. And there's clearly plenty left, by the way, in the throttle, you know, from the 70. I can feel that obviously I'm not going to going to go mad. Don't really like to exceed the speed limit, but plenty left there. Those of you who like to go into the twilight zone. No engine braking down to the 50. So, what do I think of this? It's certainly interesting, quirky. I think it's probably one of those bikes that wouldn't be your main bike necessarily. It might be your sort of second bike, particularly if you wanted to get out on sort of on longer rides. You might want to think about modifying the seat if you did want to take it further. I just start to feel the seat now, whereas on the RT I just start to feel the seat after about 6 hours normally. Plenty of grunt, plenty of character. Again, I'd probably want to change the tyres on it just to give myself something a little bit more confidence in terms of stickability. Yeah, it's a top gear there, just sort of rolling on at 50 to 70. Loads of power, very flexible. Probably a function of the fact that it is a relatively lighter bike, although it feels sort of very chunky. I don't know whether any of you own the R9T. Let me know what you think. As I say, this is not meant to be an expert detailed review. I'm not an expert, I just give impressions. You know who I am. I don't try to put myself up there as somebody who knows all the answers. I certainly don't about motorcycling, but we're all entitled to our opinion, aren't we? And that's what this review is. So there you go. We'll head back to Wollaston's now. Sounds like time for a cup of tea and sausage and egg butty. And the waterproof seems to have done the job as well. Certainly top half is dry, bottom half feet feel dry, legs feel dry. Everything's done its job. Okay, so that's back to the bike signing off. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll see you next time.